right, I was getting ready to make my tier list of all characters ranked, and this is not that video. That video will be coming out shortly because a large part of my tier list is going to be influenced by what's happening in the game today with getting Professor X and what characters you have to take to gear tier 20. Now, there was a very interesting conversation about should you take Odin to gear tier 20, overpowered 11 today, as opposed to like Oath or Blade, and do them in order. And I made a very strong case that it doesn't matter because the Professor X Saga is different than Dark Dimensions. The Professor X Saga is different than the Apocalypse Saga, where you really had to do it in order. But the way that the Professor X Saga doesn't really matter what order you put the characters, what order that you upgrade the characters, because you're going to do them all at once. There's one exception to that. We're going to talk about that in the video, as well as we're going to be talking about scope misleading the community right here with recommending Old Man Logan for this particular node. We're going to talk about the exception, why you might want to hold off on doing Odin, and when that would make sense, under what circumstances. And then we're also going to talk about Raid Shadow Legends. That's right. I've got a Raid Shadow Legends channel. And if you go check it out, you'll find out that I've been doing a lot of fun videos with Arnold, my wife, Kat. I've even done videos with Duelam and Boylon. And I'm genuinely having a blast. And if you use the QR code there on the screen, you'll get Corrado, legendary character, for free. And then you'll also get Ugo when you get to level 15, which is an amazing epic support champion. And then in the first 24 hours of playing the game, you got to use the promo code Monkey King to get Sun Wukong, which I've been calling Hitmonkey Monkey King all the time because of this. But this is very important. Probably my favorite character in the game right now. So let's talk about why the Professor X Saga is different than Dark Dimensions and the Apocalypse Saga. Those other ones you most certainly had to do in order. And the reason why you had to do the Apocalypse Saga in order, well, you didn't have to, but it made sense to do it in order, is that when you did the Apocalypse Saga in order, you got pieces that helped you do the next stage and the next stage and the next stage. So there was some advantage to doing it in order. And that is not the case on the Professor X Saga. There are no gear tier 20 pieces. So if you go into the city section first, you're not going to get anything that'll help you on the next stage. The other thing is that Dark Dimensions, it absolutely mattered the order you did in it. And that's because they took a lot of time, where you could spend days, weeks, months on a single section. So going into the first section first, there was no rush to get to the end if you didn't have the pieces ready for the next section. But if you did have the pieces ready for the next section, you would consider accelerating your process by going through that existing section by maybe refreshing the characters to get through that faster. That is not the case in the Professor X Saga. When you have the 25 characters done, you can finish all of it very quickly. And it doesn't matter as far as completing it, doing one section at a time. So, and this is where I was a little bit wrong, so I got to give a big shout out to everybody that kind of corrected me on this. This is true. This is true. 25 characters, all or nothing. Get through it in a couple hours and you're done. Going through it doesn't really impact your progress in getting Professor X. And so I made the case of taking Odin to gear tier 11 today because he's the best character in the game. He's going to help in the arena, which fuels power cores. Absolutely is going to help inside of Crucible and in Alliance War. Now, I know there are people that do not have gear tier 20s. They have gear tier 19s, and they are doing fine inside of the arena. But I'm going to say that having a gear tier 20, 11 overpowered Odin has made a difference. I can just feel it. The one thing that I did not consider, and the only flaw in this thinking, is that there is a event tied to this that is linked to the red stars on Professor X. So, like, by going through all of the parts of the Professor X saga prior to the Gear Tier 20 part for City, I get 23 helms, which gives me basically some red stars, 2 red stars on Professor X. Now, I have a 21-day period to earn all the other red stars in this event. And this is in game right now, and you can take a look at it. So, by doing Odin first, if I'm not able to get through this part right here, I might be shorting myself a red star on Professor X. And what I mean by that is that Odin takes the same pieces, because he's mystic, as some of the other people that are in the first nodes. We got namely Oath and Blade. So this is an issue, this is a cause of concern of whether or not by doing Odin now might cost me 1 red star on Professor X, because getting through the nodes in order before the 21-day period is up will matter. So a lot of people are asking, are the power cores and winning an arena and winning Crucible more important than a single star on Professor X? I don't know. I think it makes me want to scramble a little bit faster. Now, I do want to go over some of the characters that I would suggest if you're wanting to get ahead now, and because you're going to do it anyways. I mean, without a doubt, Odin is going to be the top of the list of characters to take up right away. And also Null's going to be one of those characters, and then maybe even Endgame Thanos, and then Lilandra. You don't have a choice. Lilandra is going to be required regardless. The other thing to consider on this, as far as what characters you should upgrade when, in the other Dark Dimensions, there was always a situation of the possibility of a new team coming out and those characters being more desirable. We'll see. And a lot of people I know are saying, well, I don't have access to, Sable or the new Daredevil, what's call him, Mustard Daredevil, and I want to use Spider Society. Well, my suggestion is that, if you're free to play and you're getting a drip access to Gear Tier 20, by the time you have the Gear Tier 20 pieces to attempt the city stages, you're probably going to have access free to play to Silver Sable, Daredevil Modern, and maybe even Hit Monkey right out of the gate. Now, I just want to talk about what choices I'm going to be using. For the first city stages, you got Blade, Oath, and then it's been quite fine to use these 3 right here. As far as the Vigilante, Hit Monkey is also an option. I'm not going to be doing Hit Monkey because my Punisher is 3 diamonds. Now, as far as the next one, it's Orcus and Apocalypse. The problem with Apocalypse is that he takes a lot of pieces. You could do Lady Deathstrike over Apocalypse, but Apocalypse is one of my favorite characters. It's just that he requires 5 pieces, where Lady Deathstrike is a lower number of pieces. What I'm talking about on that is, like you can see in here on my roster screen right here, I've pretty much already equipped the pieces that are not Gear Tier 20. So you can see that a lot of characters require 3 pieces, where Apocalypse requires 5. Most characters are 3. Exceptions are going to be, Apocalypse is 5. Gore looks like he's a little bit more. Lady Deathstrike is 2. Punisher is 2. You can see how each character has a little bit. Mephisto is a full 5, and that is quite a big hassle if you ask me. So that's a consideration in general. Other than having to rush through it because of this particular thing, which they also did with Odin, in general, it's better to choose quality over quickness. Frankly, in all the Dark Dimensions, in my experience, in the events that are like this with mythical characters, it's always felt better to upgrade characters that you like and that are going to be good in the longer term than the immediate turn inexpensive choices. In fact, this particular saga for Professor X pretty much is designed in a way where you can't move forward unless you get 3 stars. You do have to take quality in, or you can be in a situation where it doesn't really play out. For example, there's some people that had pitfalls with using Elektra, and that's also why this suggestion is I'm not suggesting for anybody to attempt it with Spider Society. And in general, pre-Ares characters are not going to make sense here because there was a massive stat increase after Ares. So we've got, the Sentinels here with Apocalypse. Then as far as Liberty, this is the section where I feel like Scopely misled the community right here. Apparently, people had good luck with taking a full 5-man Liberty. War Machine is kind of lackluster, and so some people used the new Emma. Now, what's interesting is what the developers suggested right here is Liberty, Old Man Logan, and Jean Grey. Old Man Logan is not good. And if you take 4 Liberty and 1 Old Man Logan, my understanding is that the boss is Shadow King and he clones and steals somebody from your team. You will take your Old Man Logan and Old Man will delete you. Every person that I've talked to that has taken Old Man Logan into this particular, the Professor X Saga, did not have good success with that. And it was a real bad decision. So shame on you, Scopely, for suggesting Old Man Logan. I'm not going to be using Old Man Logan. I wish that Old Man Logan would be an option because I think Old Man Logan's an amazing character, is one of my favorite characters of the game. So my plan is going to be to take Emma. And then in the next note, I feel like everybody agrees Null, Mephisto, and the 3 new Annihilators. In the next section, there's some debate. Odin and Lilandra are the no-brainers, and there's some issue over Starjammers and Kahori. One person suggested that they had to use Groot over Kahori. I know other people have gotten through it just fine with Kahori, and I think Kahori is superior to Groot all day long, and so that will be my plan right there. Let me know what you think. Are you going to pull the trigger on Odin today? Are you going to finish in time? Is the red star worth it or not worth it, or having better success given overpowered is in the game, with Odin being at gear tier 20 with overpowered 11 helping you in arena war and arena and alliance war? Let me know. Big shout out to Raid for sponsoring this video. Bye for now.